I'm Saul Kirsch with Double Alpha Academy, and I'm here at the new Magnus Sports store in Vegas with world champion Max Michel. Max, thank you for taking some time off at the show to come and speak with us.
You're welcome. Looking forward to it.
We're going to ask Max about his shooting career, his background, and try to put together some interesting tips and advice from Max to all of the new and advanced shooters out there. So Max, you've been part of the sport for quite some time, but give us a little bit of information about your background, where you come from, and how you first got involved in IPSC shooting.
Right, so I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, and Louisiana, guns are good. You know, everybody shoots for pastime, whether it be sporting or hunting or fishing or something outdoors. So I kind of grew up around that. When I was 5 years old, my father was already involved in IPSC shooting, so I would just follow him to the range, kind of help set targets, tape whatever it may be, load magazines or whatever I can do to help, and just started plinking, just started shooting cans or anything else that I can find on the range, and just really was able to do something with my dad more than anything else. And yeah, I just enjoyed shooting and enjoyed the sport and just wanted to be a part of it as much as possible.
That's really such a great thing here in the U.S., and it's very different internationally, that the fact that the shooting sports are out there and they're so open and so many people accept them and are involved in them, in Europe and in other places in the world, it's not as easy. So you guys are really fortunate to have it that way here.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that I have young children, it's a way of life here. So it's kind of a Michel tradition, if you will. 5 years old, you get your first rifle, your first pistol, and you go fire your first shot.
That's great. That's great.
Awesome.
So you started as a young child, but at what point did you decide that this is what you wanted to do professionally, that this was your goal?
Right. As I mentioned, 5 years old, I was just kind of playing around. And when I was probably 8 or 9, I actually actively started competing against men much older than myself. And probably when I was 13, 4 or 5 years of really competing at a high level, or competing often, I should say, is when I realized that I really wanted to do this for a long term. I was always a big part of football, baseball, basketball, track, any type of competitive sport I really enjoyed. But shooting was something that, again, it was able for my father and I to stay connected, do things with one another. But I really developed a really big passion for it just in my early teenage years. And I thought I may have a chance to do it someday as a profession. So that's when I put everything I had into it, and I stopped playing all my additional sports.
So you were in your around 14, 15 when you decided this is what you want to do professionally?
Yeah, exactly. I saw a few guys out there that was competing professionally when I was 13, 14 years old, and I thought, that's something I want to do and something I want to pursue and give it a shot.
So at quite an early stage, you joined the AMU.
I did. I was 16 years old when I received a letter from the AMU, the Army Marksmanship Unit at Fort Benning, Georgia. It's a great organization, but I received a letter from those guys saying, hey, if you want to be a part of the U.S. Army and join our shooting team, we'd love to have you. And I said, where do I sign up and when? So on my 17th birthday, with both parents' consent, you can enlist into the U.S. Army, and that's what I did. And 6 days after high school, I was gone, and I started my career as a pro shooter in the U.S. Army, and a lot of great things happened there.
And for how long were you in?
I was in just over 10 years. So it was a very big commitment, obviously. When I first joined the Army, I remember my first commander said, you look like the type of guy, from everything I've heard of you, that you'll be here for a few years, maybe 5 to 8 years kind of a thing, and then you go on and do bigger and better things. And I took really offense to that. I thought, I was supposed to be here forever. This is where I want to be. This is all I've ever wanted since I was a young boy. In fact, the first time I saw the U.S. Army shooting team, I was 13 years old. It was at the Area 3 Championship in Missouri, and I thought, man, what better way to serve my country than to do it this way? And I really wanted to be a part of it. But that commander was right. At some point, your priorities change, and you have kids, you get married, and just things change. But at the time I spent in the U.S. Army, it really made me the person that I am today. It allowed me the opportunity that I have today to be a pro shooter, and I'm forever grateful for that.
So you shot professionally within the AMU for about 10 years, and now you've been shooting professionally outside of the Army for several years. How do those, obviously they're very different, but would you say, in order to be a professional shooter, which would be the better situation to be in?
Yeah, I can say this. I was able to win a lot and do a lot of great things when I was in the service. But when you're in the Army, you're in the Army. That's your number one job. That's your number one mission. Yes, because you wear the black and gold jersey and people see you as the pro shooter within the Army. It's nice because you get to shoot all the time, but at the same token, you are a full-time U.S. Army soldier, and that is your first mission. So we enhance combat readiness. We work with the troops on training. There was multiple things that we had to do other than just pull the trigger, which I took great pride in. I loved every minute of it, but it was a job, and you were a soldier first. Now that I got out of the service, I took all that experience that I've learned and all those match experiences that I've learned and growth experiences, and as a professional shooter on the outside, I'm very fortunate to work with a lot of great sponsors that give me the opportunity to just let me be me. I don't have to sit behind a desk every day. I don't have to answer to anyone. I just have to set up the best plan, I think, to be successful in my career path. So I think that's why I've been able to be even more successful now on the outside of the Army, because I'm able to set that plan the way I see fit and the way I know I need to get the result I'm looking for.
I think there's few people around the world really understand what it means to be a professional shooter, especially in our sport. I mean, there's nowhere out there, there's no huge money in the matches, so you're not going to go out there and really make a living just winning matches. There's no way to earn a living that way. So in order to live as a professional shooter, you have to be doing a lot more than that. So what is it that you do beyond just going out and winning matches in order to be and live as a professional shooter and earn a decent living at it?
Yeah, I think as a pro shooter, most people think you just shoot. And unfortunately, we're not Drew Brees, Peyton Manning. We're not NFL ball players that you have a full-time coach and that's all you do. It's just not the way it is. To be a pro shooter, it's really so much more than just pulling the trigger and winning a match. I think anyone can go out there with training and dedication and win a match, but it's those who can separate themselves from their peers and really be an ambassador for the sport, whether it be getting younger shooters involved, getting newer shooters involved into the shooting sports, and just being an overall great ambassador for our game, being someone that someone wants to associate with. And that's the connection that you need to make as a pro shooter with the end user being the other shooters on the range. So if I'm working with Sig Sauer at an event or Double Alpha at an event or any other sponsor, I need to make sure that those logos that are on my shirt, I'm representing each and every one of those particular companies, not just the name on my back and not just myself. So to be a pro shooter, you really need to do so much more than just shoot the guns and winning the matches. If you finish 5th and you do it with a smile and a handshake, and you go and maybe help someone on the range, that means so much more than winning 1st and looking like a jerk doing it.
Right. So you really have to be prepared to go out and work there and build yourself into being somebody that the companies want to support and want to have associated with their brand.
Most definitely.
Yeah. And that's not something everybody can do.
And I think it's a balance of everything. And I've been able to learn how to do that over the years. Again, going back to my Army days, that was one of the things that I needed to learn really quickly. None of us in our sport are really celebrities, I wouldn't say, but when you're on the Army shooting team, just about everywhere you go, somebody's going to know who you are, and they're on the gun range, that is. Somebody will know who you are, and they're going to ask you questions, and they're going to thank you for your service, and they want to know things about you, and that's really the kind of the steps that put me in the position that I am today to learn how to deal with this. And when you're on deck and you're ready to shoot, and somebody says, "Can I have a picture?" or, hey, how did you do on stage 6? Can you help me out on this? You have to find a very polite way and very tactful way of letting them know whatever it is they want to know, but also making sure you can take care of your business as well.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of other shooters don't realize, is that when you make it the center activity in your life and when doing well in that match is so very important, they say, "Oh, you pro shooters, it's easy for you guys. You've got all the experience and all the support, so sure you can win." But in reality, it actually becomes more difficult because you as a professional have so much more riding on it and so many more people looking to see how you perform.
Absolutely, and that's one thing I do my very best, and I've always learned how to compartmentalize to a certain degree, to just take things and put it away and then focus on what needs to be focused on at that moment. I don't know how or why I was blessed with that. Maybe it's from my experiences, but I'm definitely able to set things aside and focus when I need to focus, and then be friendly Max when I need to be friendly Max. A great shooter once told me, you don't have to be nice to him when you're pulling the trigger. When you pull the trigger, be as mean as you possibly can. And then afterwards, smile and shake hands and be as polite as you can, and that's the kind of people somebody wants to associate with, and again, gives you the opportunity to be a pro shooter. And it's a fun job. I wouldn't want to do anything else in the world.
And when you made the decision that this is what you wanted to do, were there role models that you looked up to and you said, "I'd like to be like this guy or that guy," from a shooter's ability, but also perhaps from an image building and marketing ability as well? Who were the guys that you really looked up to follow?
Yeah, well, I was born in '81, so kind of my era was Michael Jordan. I know everybody knows that name for the most part, but that was the guy that I looked up to branding-wise. So if you can think of late 80s, early 90s, I mean, he was the most dominant figure in all of sports. That commercial from Gatorade, "Want to be like Mike." I just remember that all the time, watching it over and over again and saying, one day I hope there's a commercial, I want to be like Max. And he just inspired me. Even though I was a shooter, I would love watching his videos. And the way he went about his business and the domination he put onto the court. And he could have the flu and go out there and win the NBA Finals. That was the kind of passion and drive and determination I wanted to put into my game. So he was, I would say, probably the greatest role model as far as that sports figure out there, not related to shooting. And then, of course, in life, my father was the greatest role model for me. He left his house when he was 16 years old and started his own business. He was from a very big family and was kind of, he was kind of put on his own at some point, and he had to make a living. And he didn't go to school, didn't graduate college, didn't do those things. He went the hard way, and he provided an unbelievable life for my sister and my mother and I. And so from that standpoint, being able to see what it is to be a man and provide for your family, that was an experience that I take with me today with my children. And then as far as a shooting role model, again, my era, the late 80s, early 90s, kind of starting to compete, mid 90s, very dominant was Jerry Barnhart, Rob Latham, Todd Jarrett, Doug Koenig. Those were the guys that I really looked up to and wanted to be like. I can remember 13, 14 years old, laying in the back of the van because my dad would drive everywhere and I would just sleep, right? That's what kids do on the road. I would just sleep, and I remember laying in the back looking up through the window at the stars thinking, man, I hope one day I can be like Rob Latham or Todd Jarrett or Doug Koenig. I just remember thinking, I still to this day remember that. And here I am sitting in front of you doing this interview. I'm very blessed and very fortunate.
And you remember the first time in a match that you beat one of those role models?
Yeah, it's a very scary thing because I remember specifically the 2000 U.S. Nationals. I joined the Army in '99, so I missed that national championship. And the year before that, '98, I was 51st overall at the U.S. Nationals, which was good at the time. I felt was excellent. But when I went to the 2000 Nationals, I was in position to win. I ended up finishing third overall, which was a big jump for me. 51st to third was excellent. But I remember that time when I thought, oh man, I'm getting ready to beat Todd Jarrett here on the national stage. And I wasn't ready and prepared. You put me in that position today, I'm going to win that match 10 out of 10 times. But back then, I wasn't prepared to beat my hero, the guy I looked up to. But once I was able to finally get through that hump and capture that, I do. Yes, it's an unbelievable experience. And then you never look back. Somebody once said, just keep training until your idols become your rivals. And it's a great expression, and that's the way I look at it today.
So now you're 34. You've been shooting professionally for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
What's next? How long do you see yourself actually focusing on this as a sportsman and as an agent for all these great companies? And do you have any long-term plans in mind?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like I am living my next. This is what I've always ever wanted to do since I was just a little kid. And now I'm finally afforded that opportunity to do so. And I want to do it for as long as I possibly can. My plan is, I have other plans out there to possibly slow down at some point and possibly opening up a shooting facility, a training facility, or maybe even just simply work with the same companies I'm working with, but in more of a marketing or a product management role rather than being the guy out in front in the face of the franchise, so to speak. But at the moment, all I can see is winning and competing and training for the next 5, 10, 15 years. I don't see why I wouldn't be able to do that with the amount of experience that I have now and the dedication that I put into this. I look at guys like Rob Latham and Todd Jarrett and Doug Koenig. They're 10, 15, 20 years older than I am, and they're still doing it. Jerry Michel, he's still doing it in his 60 years old in that range, and I feel like why not me?
But there's a price you pay. There's a sacrifice you make. You have 3 small kids, and you must be away from home, 4 months of the year, or?
Yeah, at least. Yeah, I purposely don't count the days I'm away. I have my calendar. My wife has my calendar, but I purposely will never count it because it would just demotivate me maybe. But yeah, it's a balance. It's extremely difficult. I'm fortunate to have an amazing wife that supports me in everything that I do. She literally gave up her career. She's a full-time nurse. She's a very smart lady and very experienced in her job field, but she gave up her career so that way I can offer my sponsors more. I can be more available. I can be on the road more. I can do things more. That way she can take care of the kids. Because we were finding as a nurse, you can make your own schedule. 3 days a week is all you needed to work. But what we found was I was home maybe 3 days a week if we were lucky. So I was just home so she could work. Right. And we never saw one another as a family.
It's tough to maintain.
It's very tough. So now we just find a balance. Every chance I can get, every moment I'm home, I'm always with my children. I'm always with my wife. And I take them on a road with me as much as we can also. And then another thing is just get them shooting. So now I have my kids shooting. So if I go to a match somewhere, they want to go and they want to shoot, all the better. We're together.
That's fantastic.